if we start tapping on people, or if you go home and your husband or wife says, what are you into, what are you doing, and you say, oh, there's this guy from South Africa and he teaches us we have to tap, and then all our problems will go away. You're on thin ice, you know. People will say, oh, you've lost it a bit, you've just hit menopause or whatever. So what I try to find is explanations that could help me in understanding what we actually do inside our mind. And I used a couple of models. Now, a model is the theoretical structure that helps you understand something. It doesn't have to be the 100% truth. It's good enough to work. So let's go to our brain first. We've got the face, your eyes, nose, mouth, lower jaw. Okay. The first brain that we have, a model called Triune brain, is the brain stem. It's a vertebral cord that goes up and it's got a little brain, cerebellum. And this structure is basically, the first part of it is formed when you're 4 weeks old. It's about 3 millimeters big. When your embryo is 3 millimeters big, this forms. In evolution, it's believed that this structure is about 500 million years old. In other words, you could say all the animals that we have got that structure. The next brain that develops also in the embryo is, Bennie alluded to it, is a limbic system. It's a midbrain. It's a lot of structures that form the limbic system. And then the last brain that we have as humans is the cortex. That's the grey stuff all around it. And especially the prefrontal cortex, which only develops completely when you say 25 years old. Let's go to the function, or one step back. The green thing, 250 million years old, also called mammalian brain. All the animals that have this brain communicate with voice or sound. They raise their young and they play. Exactly what a little dog would do. So you can remember mammalian brain, mammals. Okay. This one's only 100 million years old, so it's pretty new in evolution. And what do they do? This is what we call instinct, all the automatic functions. Body temperature, immune system control, digestion, all that sort of stuff. Without this, you wouldn't be able to walk from here to there. Limbic system, we can say simply it's the seat of our emotions. Okay. And this blue part is our biological computer. Why is it relevant? This thing can take patterns that we see as humans, connect the dots, create a functional model, and then build models out of that that are not there. In other words, the cortex in our human brain builds structures that are either in the future or the past, or that have never been there before. Everything you see around here has been created in the cortex. Interesting though, the cortex works with these others. The cortex will think something up, and then it will feed it to the emotional and the limbic system. The cortex can understand that it's future and past. It can work with abstract stuff. The bottom one, and I call it the crocodile always, the crocodile in us cannot work with abstract stuff. The crocodile, this is, say, the crocodile, the whole thing, thinks everything is real. Okay? So you will never convince the crocodile that the dentist is not dangerous, because for him the dentist is dangerous. New ideas come from here, they get shipped to there, and then the reaction that you feel and that you act in your body when you start sweating and all that are made in this lot. Why is that important? When we get news being fed, we pick it up in milliseconds and it gets shipped here and we react to it as if it's real. When we tell you that it's happened in Afghanistan. You say yes, that's true, and yet subconsciously you react to the bad news as if it's right here. We used that in all the times when we were roaming the steppes and the lions were chasing us. This brain does all these things. The main function of this brain is to keep you safe. It'll do anything, sorry, with an F, to keep you safe, even if it's crazy. And it's got 4 models of reaction. Flight, you run away. Second, you hit the guy. And thirdly, yes, you are paralyzed by fear. Flight, fight, and freeze. Those are the basic patterns. Now if you stress, say you think about something, we've been talking about triggers. You think about a trigger. This brain knows it's a trigger only, because Bennie has said it's all in your mind. And you know, for instance, you can say to the guy, listen, this drill will not hurt you, or the injection will not hurt you. But the crocodile says, you need to be safe, and you react in this pattern. And normally in a dentist situation, you run away, flight, or you get aggressive because your wife's made an appointment and you say to her, look, I don't do doctors, whatever. Or you freeze up, you don't do anything. And all these patterns for your teeth are bad, so your mouth ends up in a mess. I believe today that most of the dental problems arise in your crocodile, and not because you eat sweets. Okay, I'm talking about a global problem in the Western world. Does this make sense? This is the logic. The interesting part is the logic is very good and very slow. This brain is about 1 million times faster than this one. So when you hear something, feel something, smell something that's remotely like something that you've experienced, this part has got no chance to react. This will react first. Take off road rage. You see the taxi rides in front of you. Before you can think about him, this one wants to ram the car or do whatever you want to do. Okay, and half an hour later you think, oh, lost your own mind. Okay? And there are lots of techniques to actually stop this brain and get this one moving. Say we are agitated by a trigger. Then we get panicky. Your body goes along and it takes all the blood away from your cortex, especially from the prefrontal cortex. And the prefrontal cortex in our world is the newest, most sensible part of our brain. Okay? It gives you responsibility, it gives you logical thinking, and what do you think happens if all the blood gets drained away? It can't think. When you, who have you been in an exam where you can't think anymore? You walk out 2 hours later, you look at the same question and you think, maar hierdie ding is so maklik. Because the blood was taken away, you couldn't think and you went into panic. This guy was basically paralyzed and this guy took over and it drove you crazy and it gave you these patterns. You froze up or you ran away or whatever. You couldn't hit the teacher. So when we start tapping on these acupuncture points, we stimulate a certain part in the limbic system. And the limbic system gets shut down, or let's say the crocodile gets suppressed. It actually physically gets suppressed. And funny enough, the blood gets back to the cortex. So the first thing that you feel, never mind talking, never mind doing anything else, is here come near the O, for sure. You start secreting massive amount of serotonin. Okay, serotonin is an interesting molecule because it is involved in making memories. I want to go back to something else. Bennie, I don't remember, or I haven't asked you how you define trauma, but I just want to throw in another package here for trauma. Now, trauma is normally a very strong emotional stimulus that somebody experiences. And when you talk about dental fear patients, phobia patients, they have experienced something that, number one, made them feel it's life-threatening. When it's a little guy and he gets put on a chair, he feels he's going to be killed. Secondly, he feels he cannot help himself. Thirdly, he feels nobody else can help him anymore, because his father, usually, that took him there, knew that he had to hand him over to the doctor. The doctor tells him, I'm not going to hurt you. He injects him, he hurts him. He breaks that trust, so he's never to be trusted. Now all hell breaks loose because his father's left him. He feels he's going to be killed. The doctor is not to be trusted, and he's being hurt. And the fourth part is that it's highly emotional. And when you get those four things together, whether it's in an accident, whether it's in a war situation, in a dental chair, you've got a 25% chance of ending up with post-traumatic stress dysfunction. Now, dental phobic patients are like war guys that come back and they've got bosses. Okay. So this is why this works so well on them. Okay. In that millisecond, microsecond, your crocodile says whoop, and it freezes a pattern of thoughts. You could say in your limbic system. And I always draw it like a little stick block. This now is your memory. Certain nerves have interacted and they're like frozen up. When you activate them, it's like learning. They disengage. And then when you let them settle, like Bennie said, 6 hours, they become stronger. It's just like mental gym. Now they found, they took a stuff called animomycin, and they took rats, and they had these rats feed at a certain point. And then they started shocking them. When a normal rat would go back, and after being shocked twice, it would stop. It learned the new thing. Then they injected them with animomycin, which is a protein that binds to the nerves. It lets them come undone, but it doesn't let them settle back. So they couldn't relearn. Okay? And therefore they realized that in order to change a pattern, you have to unlock it and then put a substance in so that it can reassociate itself. So what happens when we do EFT? We tap on these acupuncture points, release a lot of serotonin, the nerves come undone, and the serotonin binds on it. So then the old pattern doesn't reassemble. It's like unlearning something. Your brain is plastic. It can change. And when you learn to ride a bike, you practice it, you undo the nerves, and then you let them fall back. And that's how we become stronger and stronger at doing something. In this case, we tap and we stop that process. And that's why we need to get, and I don't quite agree with Bennie in the way, I want to go to the trauma. And I'm talking about dental trauma mostly. I want those memories activated and disengaged. Then I tap, and then the serotonin blocks them to be reassociated just like they were. So in other words, I use a natural substance to stop them going back there. Then once the guy's calmed down, his nerves have been taken apart and blocked by his own serotonin, then I can introduce new things, logic things that he knows are truth, and I introduce them through the cortex. And how do I do that? When he's calm and his crocodile doesn't take over anymore, I use, like Gary Craig uses, humor. I will, for instance, go and ask the patient about the dentist that he was at. And I said to him, in the talking and in the tapping, you will say, I wish you would have loved to give him an injection. And they normally start giggling and say yes. And you will say, yeah, he was just an old fart. Imagine his you know, he normally had a safari puck on or something. Imagine him without his safari puck with his hairy, wrinkly stomach. So now you bring new patterns about this person that hurt him, and you let them settle in. Okay. So first of all, you calm him down, then you destroy the old frantic patterns, these traumatic patterns. You put serotonin in that blocks the reassembly of them, and at the same time you introduce a new picture, and you bind it with funny emotions, to his situation. And it changes everything. They will remember the time, but they will giggle about it. Because now you've, like NLP, you've linked a new, you call it anchor, to that part. I don't know if that makes sense to you guys.
Reprogram.
Yeah, you reprogram, but you use the traumatic memory that was created, smell, sight, sound, when you were, say, a little guy. You undo it, you give him his own chemical via tapping to stop or to block it, that it can't get together again, and at the same time you build a new neural network with new associations, with new emotions. And that helps him a lot. Bennie, I don't know if that makes sense.